Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patten, and in this video, I'm going to take a look back at the previous videos and the player pools that I created and put them together in one player pool and build a couple lineups. And on Tuesday, we'll do a recap show and use that as a measuring stick to look at how well the research was. Hopefully, this information will be valuable to you, and you are able to build winning lineups this weekend. I do want to say that I'm going to do a couple lineups on the screen. Um, you don't have to use them. I will, whichever lineup I build on screen, I will be using that in in a few contests. I enter various contests, like I said in my previous videos. You can follow me, Cowboy Fan 215, Cowboy jersey, and I hope this is a successful week for everyone. I want to get started. I just wanted to mention some basic rules that I utilize when building my lineups. And number one, I want you, if you know, this is just a guide. If there's players that you're interested in, that you have a strong feeling about, by all means, build your own lineups. I don't mind using the player pool that I have, but if you want to make adjustments, it's your contest. This is just information that I've put together. It is backed by statistics and facts and history, but definitely, interchange things if they don't make sense when you're building lineups. To me, they have to make sense. I really believe in game script. In all my videos, I mentioned I look at the Vegas line. I take into consideration the games with the higher totals. Those are the games that I target as far as the players, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of scoring. Then those players are going to, in those games, are going to be the ones that score a lot of points. But put in your mind a game script and make sense. I'll show you that when I build a couple lineups here, why I feel like they make sense, and we'll go from there. With quarterbacks, remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be volume with quarterbacks compared to running backs, where you running backs and wide receivers. There's a different measuring stick or things that you use. But with quarterbacks, you're looking for efficiency, value, um, game script, and again, factor in the Vegas line. With running backs, the main thing for me when I go to look at running backs, I'm looking for touches. If I'm going to use a running back in the flex position, between the three running backs, I'm wanting to get to 70 touches between them. Touches create points at the running back position. Um, with running backs, you also want to consider the game script, touches, and the Vegas lines. And did I say touches? That's really important with the running backs. Wide receivers, um, the thing that you're going to be looking for is, do they get targets? What's their target share? What's their, how many snaps are they involved in that offense? Looking back at last week or statistics from last year, is that wide receiver a big part of the offense? You also, with wide receivers, you can research and look up individual matchups, as I did in my previous videos. I did some of that for you. Um, and again, with the wide receivers, you're going to factor in targets. Tight ends, uh, very similar to wide receivers. You're going to factor in targets, value, uh, the game script, matchups, how certain teams match up against the tight end position. We went through that. We went over that in the tight end video that I did. So factor in all these things when you're building your lineup. And like I said, build a lineup that makes sense. Like if you're looking at a game that's projected to be lower scoring, you might not want to have a lot of players from that game. Um, you might want to team up when you're building your lineup. Might want to team up a wide receiver or a tight end with your quarterback. If the if you take a quarterback, unless it's a running quarterback like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, uh, uh, if any of the other you could take those quarterbacks in what they call standalone. But any of the other quarterbacks, to just put them there without another one of their players, I don't do that when I'm building lineups. The way I figure is if the quarterback is going to go off and score a lot of points, he's got to be throwing the ball to somebody and try to figure out who's going to get the targets. Um, Looking at the player pool and also I meant to mention defense, special teams. You're looking for value. For me, I'm interested in teams that are home favorites, and also the game script. Is it going to be a game where the opposing team is going to be putting the ball in the air a lot? I feel like teams that pass a lot and are big underdogs. Those are teams that you can target because a lot of things can go wrong when you're throwing the ball compared to if you're running it. There's all kinds of different scenarios and things that happen when you put the ball in the air. So this week I identified the following players for the player pool that I'm going to use. Quarterbacks, David Carr from Oakland, Jared Goff from the Rams, Phillip Rivers from the Chargers, Matt Stafford from Detroit, Ryan Fitzpatrick from Miami, and Drew Brees from New Orleans. Running backs, Saquon Barkley from the Giants, Henry from Tennessee, Connor from Pittsburgh, Ingram from Baltimore. I wanted to look real quick I just seen something a few minutes ago with Ingram. Yeah, he has a questionable tag. You got to make sure you check before the games lock at 1 o'clock. These players are all from the main slate. Make sure the players are in the games, because one thing you definitely do not want is to start your game out with a 0. Mark Ingram says shoulder is listed as questionable for Sunday's game against the Cardinals, despite being a full practice participant Thursday and Friday. Definitely check this tomorrow. As I mentioned in my video, Ingram is the primary back on this team. He was very efficient with his carries last week. He had 14 carries, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Very efficient. But Gus Edwards actually out touched him. Edwards actually had 17 carries. So, if you're going to look at the Ravens running game, make sure you check that tomorrow. Edwards is another running back in the player pool. Sony Michel from the Patriots, Josh Jacobs from Oakland, Ezekiel Elliott from Dallas, and Dalvin Cook from Minnesota. Wide receivers, I added Brown from Buffalo. I did a little bit more research, and Brown teamed up with Josh Allen may be the way to go. But Brown from Buffalo, Williams, Tyrell Williams from Oakland, Thielen from Minnesota, Woods, Kupp, and Cooks, all from the Rams, Boyd from Cincinnati, Edelman from New England, Cooper from Dallas, Schuster from Pittsburgh, Hopkins from Houston, and Thomas from New Orleans. They're going to be in there consistently week to week, just because those 2 receivers in particular receive a very large target share for their teams, and they definitely get peppered with targets. Tight end position, Kelsey and Kittle. They're obviously 2 of the top 4 tight ends week in and week out. There's a new guy on the scene, Waller from Oakland. The game script this week is probably going to favor using some pieces of the Oakland passing game if they're trying to play catch up or even keep up. They may have to rely on the passing game. Swaim from Jacksonville, he's actually one of my sneaky picks. You have Minshew, who's a rookie quarterback. This is his first start in the NFL due to the injury to Nick Foles last week. Minshew for Jacksonville was a very efficient quarterback in college at Washington State. This is definitely definitely a different game, but he rookie quarterbacks in particular, first start, you can see him wanting to rely on his tight end to check down a lot. Another tight end is Cook from New Orleans, Davis from Washington. Jordan Reed has been ruled out, and Delaney Walker from Tennessee. Defensive special teams that I'm going to target, and I kept this group pretty small. Baltimore, obviously, 30 coming in at 3,800. New England 3,700. Dallas at 3,300, and Houston at 2,800. I really like Houston because of the value and the game script. The others have the potential to be very high-scoring defenses, but you also have to sometimes factor in value when you're trying to get up in salary and get some of the players that you like. Before I get started with a couple builds, I'd like to share what the optimal lineup for week 1 in DraftKings was. Optimal is the best possible combination of players that you could have had, utilizing the salary of 50,000 and the best total score that you could get. Things like you find a lot of the quarterbacks match up with their tight ends, if it's game or team stacks. But last week, quarterback position was Jackson for Baltimore, 36.56 points. McCaffrey from Carolina with 45.90 points. Eckler from the Chargers with 39.40 points. Watkins from Kansas City, 49.8 points, 80 points. Jackson from Philadelphia with 38.40 points. Ross from Cincinnati with 37.80 points. Ingram from the Giants had 31.60 points. Hollywood Brown from Baltimore had 33.70 points. And the 49ers defense had 27 points. What's very interesting, if you'd have took that combination of players, obviously you would have won whatever contest you were in because the total possible best optimal score was 340 points, 340.16 points. The total salary to pick those players was $44,500, which is $5,500 under the $50,000 cap. That's very interesting. So let me get started here, and I just want to show you a couple lineups that I have looked at already, utilizing only players from the pool that I've mentioned this week. And in my previous videos, I went over why I like those particular players. And let me just show you what you can do with a few of these. I'm going to start this one off. I'm going to go with Jared Goff. We like Goff in that game. It is the highest total on the board at 52.5 points. Projected shootout and really good value in his salary at $5,900 compared to if you want to get Mahomes in your lineup, you're going to spend $7,500, which is $2,600 more. So I feel like Jared Goff is a value and could put up a lot of points. Next, at running back, Saquon Barkley. As I mentioned in my video, Barkley, we all know, is the premier back. Matter of fact, he is the biggest piece of the New York Giants offense. He's going to be on the field whether they're winning or losing, and he gets all the carries, and he gets a ton of targets. He's very expensive this week, and I don't mind spending up for one or two players to build a balanced lineup. But I feel that Barkley could have a pretty decent game against Buffalo. Next, Sony Michel from New England. This game has an 18. New England is favored by 18.5 points. They have a total of 48 points. They have an implied team total of 33 points. If you remember the game from last week in Baltimore, Jackson did have his way in the passing game. He was very efficient, but they absolutely pounded Miami with the running game. And you could see a scenario where Brady gets some of the lead, possibly utilizing Brown or Michelle as well. And one thing to keep in mind, James White for the Patriots, his wife had a baby, and I'm not sure that he's going to be at the game tomorrow. With that, we all know that White catches a lot of passes out of the backfield for New England. They would obviously give that role to Rex Burkhead, but that could also give some more work to Sony Michel. And in the game script of them being ahead, I could see them leaning on Michel and getting well over 20 carries and adding in a couple touches. The next player, now we're going to go to the wide receiver. First one I'm going to select is Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati. The game script is favorable. They don't have A.J. Green, obviously. Boyd is their main receiver. Although John Ross did go off against Cincinnati last week, or against Seattle last week, I think that was a result of them giving a lot of attention to Boyd and freeing up Ross on the other side. With that being said, Boyd still received 11 targets last week. Dalton definitely looks to Boyd. And Joe Mixon is banged up, so he may have to rely on Boyd even more. The next receiver I'm interested in is Williams from Oakland at 4,400. Williams is going to be chalk this week, meaning there's going to be a very high percentage ownership on him because he had a really good game last week. He is the number one receiver in Oakland. The Raiders in the game script this week, it could possibly be a very high-scoring game. Last time they played in Oakland, the score was 40-33, and there were a lot of fantasy points scored in that game as well. Obviously, he is going to be popular because he is the number one receiver. The game script, game total of 52 points, second highest on the board, and his salary at 4,400, he's going to be really high on. But it's okay. Like I said, it's okay to put one or two or a couple of the what they call the chalk plays in your lineup. But he is definitely going to be a player that I have in my lineups tomorrow. Another player, wide receiver, that I'm going to put in this lineup is Robert Woods from the Los Angeles Rams. When I take a quarterback, unless, like I said, it's Jackson or Allen, I want to have a quarterback teamed up with a wide receiver or a tight end from his team. You get double the points if there's a score, and remember I talked about scoring is very difficult to project, and it's it's very volatile week in, week out. But Woods gets a lot of targets from Goff, and this game has the highest total on the board. And actually, Woods, look at this real quick. I know he had 8 receptions for 70 yards and 13 targets in his last game last week. So Woods teamed up with Goff, and his salary is doable in this lineup build, and I think he's going to score a lot of points in this game. The tight end position, going all the way down to another guy that's probably going to be really popular this week due to his price and the volume. The game script again for Oakland. A lot of people are, including Las Vegas, are expecting the Chiefs to come in and score a lot of points, which means the Raiders are going to have to put the ball in the air to hopefully keep up. If they can, last week Waller had 7 receptions on 8 targets. So Waller and Williams for Oakland received a huge amount of the target share last week. Another player that I'm going to put in the lineup this week is in the flex position. Like I said before, I like to utilize running backs as much as possible in the flex position, is Josh Jacobs. Now, Jacobs is $4,700, and I'm kind of concerned about this pick because if the game script, if it gets out of hand and Oakland has to put the ball in the air exclusively, they could phase Jacobs out of this game. But in the scenario of Oakland keeping pace somewhat, you could see Jacobs getting a lot of carries, trying to play keep away from Patrick Mahomes, and being a pretty high scoring player for fantasy points. Excuse me, but there's some other running backs and I'll probably play this lineup and work some different players in and out. But there's some other running backs down in that area that you could possibly use. Singletary for Buffalo kind of stands out at 4,200. I'm trying to see if there's anybody that's out of our player pool. We didn't have Singletary. But if you're uncomfortable with Jacobs and you want to switch him out, by all means, it's your contest and your lineup. Do what you think is best. This lineup has 3 players from one team, but they're players that are involved in the second highest projected total on the board. Defense, special teams. For this game, I like the Houston Texans a lot. For defense, I like their value. I like the game script, and I definitely like the price. So there you go. We have we have $600 left. So actually, going back to that Josh Jacobs thing at running back, we could actually afford. Let me see. Jacobs is $4,700. If you took him out and looked at our player pool, and this is how I build lineups. Bernard, if he gets to start, if Mixon's out tomorrow, Bernard is a good value pick at $5,300 to plug in there. Another pick. I do like to put in running backs in that flex position. There's Jacobs. I'm gonna stick with that pick for now. Um, Kansas City was not good against the run last year. So there you go. Jared Goff, Saquon Barkley, Sony Michel, Tyler Boyd, Tyrell Williams, Robert Woods, Waller, Jacobs, and the Texans. All from the player pool that I put together this week in the videos. Um, so I want to do one more. Let's clear this. And you can go to when you're on DraftKings, you can actually click on Create Lineup, and it'll actually ask you what game you're interested in. First, it asks you like Major League Baseball, NFL. You click on the NFL, and then like, are you interested in Classic or Tiers? You click on Classic, and then it gives you the different contests, and you click on Main Slate, and it brings up the lineups for the main slate. If we put together one more, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go right back to Jared Goff. I really like Goff because of his price, the game script. I don't think you can go wrong with the quarterback from the game with the highest game total, 52.5 points. So I'm gonna go right back to him. Running back, I'm going to go down to instead of Barkley, I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to go to James Conner. There's a note on James Conner. Let's check it out. Doesn't seem like he had an illness, but returned to a full practice on Thursday, so he's fine. Um, Sony Michel, we're gonna put Michel right back in there. Love the game script, and he should be able to put up a lot of points, get a lot of volume carries. And if White, pay attention to that tomorrow. If White is out, Michel becomes even more valuable. Uh, Wide receiver, I'm gonna go right back down to Tyler Boyd. Now I'm not switching out a lot of players. I don't believe in just totally making 20 totally different lineups. I'm going with game scripts and what I think is going to work based on the research that I did. If someone gets hurt last week, I was really high on Nick Foles. I like the game script. You can't project an injury. Just so happened I was lucky enough to get 7 points out of him. When he threw a touchdown. That's when he got his clavicle broke. But you know, I don't just put together 20 different lineups with 20 different, all different players. I try to stick to my player pool. Every now and then I'll vary a little bit. Like the Josh Jacobs in the flex position. I like to use the running back a lot in the flex position, but there's a scenario this week also. I was looking at overall where you could actually, I think two tight ends might be the way to go this week, and actually Kelsey and Waller from the same game could be a nice combo with the game total, the game script. Both teams. Kelsey put up 42 points last time he played against the Raiders in Oakland. In that game, the score was 40-33. So he definitely has the potential to put up and break a lot of points and break the slate. But getting back to this, we're going to go back to Tyler Boyd. Boyd is there. He is 6,500. Now where I'm going to switch up a little bit is I'm going to go ahead and I want Robert Woods and I want Cooper Kupp. My thought is, and I mentioned this before, if Goff has a big game, it's highly likely that he's going to have one or two receivers have big games as well. Depending on that large total, and I'm going with that game script. That's what I'm going to lean on. I have no interest in the Rams running game tomorrow. At tight end, I'm going to go right back to the kid from the Raiders, Waller. Um, I like that game script. He is $3,300. If he keeps having games like he had last week, it won't be long till his price gets adjusted. DraftKings is pretty good at that. So right now, the salaries are kind of soft. So take advantage of some of these while you can. So I got Waller in there, and I like running back in the flex position. So I'm going to go back to Derrick Henry here. Henry is, I believe, 6,000. Yep. That leaves me 2,900 for my defense, and I can go with the Texans again, who I like a lot. The value, the game script is all there. Now, here you go. I'm spent all but $100, $4,900, $900. When I mentioned that I liked Kelsey a lot, so if I took Henry out and I go over here and I go to the top, that's where Kelsey is, 7,300. It's really weird. There's a $4,000 difference between those two, and they could be two of the highest scoring players in that game. Now I'm down 1,200. So if I took out Connor, I could scroll down here and keeping in mind the players that I have in my player pool. Actually, I'm going to take out Michelle since I had him in the other lineup. And I'm going to adjust this to Henry. And that leaves me 5,800 for my running back. And you could plug in Bernard if Mixon doesn't play. You could go down. Here's Josh Jacobs again. That actually might be a nice combination as well. The Josh Jackson's. Let's put him in there. So we have Goff from the Rams, Henry from Tennessee, Jackson. Wait a minute, hold on. This is that's the wrong Jackson. That's Jackson from the Chargers. Sorry about that. Let's go down here. Find the right Jackson. There's not Jackson. Sorry, Jacobs. We're looking for Jacobs from Oakland. Bear with me a second. Josh Jacobs, $4,700. There it is. So here you go. Goff from the Rams, Henry from Tennessee, Josh Jacobs from Oakland, Boyd from Cincinnati, Woods from the Rams, Cooper Kupp from the Rams, Waller from Oakland, Kelsey from Kansas City. I very rarely do that, but I just have a feeling there's going to be a lot of points between those two. And the Texans, wow, I have $1,100 left. I could actually I wanted to spend up off of Henry. I could actually get up to, wow, there's a lot. From the player pool, there's Connor from Sonny Michel, 6,200. Like I said, make sure if you use Mark Ingram tomorrow, make sure you check that before they give out the injury report at 11:30, 90 minutes before kickoff. Make sure you check that. Henry should get a lot of the carries in that game. But if you wanted to switch him out for James Conner, that could be potentially a good pick. Um, or if you take out the Texans, 2,800, and go down and see if I have any of the defenses that I like. Down there, the Texans are going to be the value uh, defense. There's going to be a lot of people take Baltimore and New England. Uh, so let's see here. Taking Kelsey in the flex position and really handcuffs you. Because if you just plugged in Waller, you would have a lot left. You would have 14,400. If you wanted to do that, you could go and get um, you could get Saquon and still have 5,200 left, and you could even plug in looking for some value. I'm gonna take no, Barkley is gonna get a huge percentage of that offense. Trying to find some players from the player pool. There's Jared Cook. He's only you would be taking Kelsey out for Barkley, which makes sense. Um, and there's Jared Cook. That's on the player pool that I have. Um, some other players are Evan Ingram's always in play. I didn't have him this week. I don't have a lot of interest. He's always in play. Um, Josh Jacob. Can you get? We have Jacobs there. Um, if you wanted to um, stick to just the one Rams receiver, you could save a little bit and go over to um, see somebody that's under Cup that's on our player pool. Um, Obviously, when kind of getting back to that first lineup that I had. Um, so let's just go back to what we had. We had Henry in this particular build at 6,000, I believe. Yeah, Henry at 6,000. Um, Flex position, we were going with Kelsey at 7,300, and wide receiver. Oh wow, that wide receiver was Cooper Kupp. You can go with Kupp or Cooks. I prefer Woods, but you can actually plug in Cooks there. You can go up and there's Adam Thielen. He's on the player pool this week. Julian Edelman. There's Stephon. There's Diggs right above Cooks. There's Cooper Kupp, who I like a lot. There's John Brown, who I did add. Let's go all the way up though, and utilize the salary we do have, because we already have Goff paired up with Woods. You can pair two wide receivers up with the quarterback, but yeah, that's a pretty interesting lineup right there. I can tell you that the lineups that I have built here tonight, I will be using them. And like I said, you can follow me on Cowboy Fan 215. That's my user ID on DraftKings. And I will be back on Tuesday to recap and be transparent. And hopefully, we all do some winning tomorrow. And Tuesday, I will also cover, take a first look at quarterbacks for week through 3. I appreciate you being with me, sticking this out as we, finagle and build lineups. Um, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and like if you get any value out of this information at all. And I wish you good luck tomorrow, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Take care.